Today we've got some really practical tips to help you with nature study. Welcome to the Simply Charlotte Mason podcast. I'm Sonya Schaefer. I am really excited about our episode today. Karen Smith is joining us to discuss how do you go about observing in nature study. We often say, observe all you can, but you shared in a session at our retreat recently some real practical tools to help us walk through that observation time, questions we can ask and steps we can take. So I really wanted you to share that with everybody, if you will.
There are 4 steps to helping your children and yourself learn how to observe better in nature. And those are notice, think about it, ask questions, and then reflect on what you have observed. And so let's take those one at a time.
Notice, think, ask, reflect.
Reflect.
Okay, notice.
Notice. Notice what you can about whatever object you're looking at in nature. And that could be a leaf, it could be a tree, it could be a flower, it could be maybe a bird at your bird feeder. Anything. It could be an insect. Tell what you notice out loud so that you remember that. I noticed a robin at my bird feeder eating birdseed.
And this noticing and observing, because to me, this step number 1 is almost as far as we often get, just noticing. But I remember in another session you talked about using all the senses you possibly can for that noticing. So that's where the senses come into play.
This can come into play there. The other thing is if it's an object you can hold or you can move around. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's an insect on a plant or it's a rock you're holding in your hand. Look at it from different perspectives. Underneath or above or from the other side so that you see more of it than just that one observation that you see it there.
And I
Sometimes
guess you could
turning it can.
You could even do that with something that is larger, like a tree. You could move to look from a different perspective as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Or just like an insect on a flower, you might not want to touch and pick up, the bumblebee on the flower, but you can move around that flower and observe it from other directions.
Yes.
So
So
do that. That's important.
So that's notice. And now we're going to get into what else you can do, because like I said, so often you end with notice. Okay, I'm done.
Yes. Now the think part is think about what does that object remind you of? What does it look like to you? Now that could be something that you're looking at a leaf and you notice that its shape is like a mitten. It reminds you of that. And that gives you a connection to it. So, when I see this leaf again, it's mitten shaped.
I've seen
observed
that
before.
Yeah.
So it could be another object, or it could be another leaf that you've seen, or in the case of an insect, another type of insect that you've seen. It reminds you of that one. There's some similarities there.
Okay.
So that's what you're thinking about. You're associating it with something that you know. So there's that connection. Now you can ask questions.
That's the
about
third
that
step,
object,
asking
the third
questions
step.
now.
And these are just the typical who, what, where, when, why, and how questions. And you don't have to come up with a question for every one of those, because sometimes they won't apply.
Okay.
But the idea is to learn what you can about the object by asking those questions, as many as you can. So you might say, maybe you've seen a nest. Well, who built that nest? You might have to observe for a while to see what birds come back to that nest. Or you might just have to make note of the nest material and how it's made and where it's at so that you can go look it up in a field guide or online and see what type of nest it was, because all the birds make different nests.
Yes.
So that's part of
now,
your
I heard a couple
observation.
other questions when you said what it's made of.
We're going to get to those.
Okay, yeah.
So that would be the next one. What is the nest made?
Yeah.
Made from? Did the bird use mud, grass, twigs, string, horsehair. I mean, there are all sorts of things that birds use for nesting material. And those are clues to, again, who made this nest.
Learning more about it.
But learning about how is it made? Who is it?
So the who made
what
it.
What is it made
and
from?
what is it made from? Yeah. Who, what, where.
Where? Where is the nest located?
Oh, yes.
Is it located high up in a tree? Is it on the ground? Is it in a bush?
Is it in a drain pipe? We were on the road the other day, and we stopped at a fast food place, and it had drain pipes up above with holes in the drain pipes. And this little, I think it was a sparrow,
Probably.
was flying there, and it had this piece of hay, it almost looked like, just a small piece of hay in its mouth, and it just disappeared into that little hole, and then it came back out without the hay.
Yes.
It's like it was building a nest up there.
Yes.
That's where.
Yes.
That's where it was.
You'll often see them on the signs that are on stores, you know, the big letters that they have.
Oh, yes.
Those are not flat, and birds will often build on those.
Yes.
So where is it built?
Where's this nest? Okay. Who, what, where, when?
When was the nest made? Now, you might not know. If you find it in the fall, after the leaves have come off the trees, you might not know when that nest was made. But if things fall into place that you see a robin building a nest, you can observe and watch when it's made. And you can record that in your nature journal or on your calendar. The robin began building this nest on this date and finished the nest and laid the first egg on this date. So you have that timeline, and that's learning how long does it take a robin to build a nest. Well, I've observed it this one time. I'll watch again and see if that's the same next time.
And if you find that empty nest in the fall, you might make a note to start watching that location in the spring.
Yes.
Early spring, and see if you can find a bird creating a nest there. So that's another potential long-term nature study that we've talked about in other episodes. We'll leave a link to that one so people can refer back to it. But those long-term nature studies can spring from this observation.
Oh, yes.
Wow. So that was the
when.
Okay.
When.
Who, what, where, when, why.
Why? Why was the nest made? Well, a nest is usually made so that the bird can lay its eggs and raise its family. Not always. The sparrow you mentioned earlier, they build nests all the time. They just do that. And so they'll stuff any cavity they can find with nesting material. But usually a bird is going to build a nest at a specific time for a specific purpose, which is to raise their family. But why is a question that you can ask about your object.
Yeah, and young children will probably come up with a lot of why questions.
Oh, yeah. Why, Mom?
Yeah.
How?
How was the last one? Yeah.
How was the nest made? Did the bird weave the material together? Did the bird use mud to
stick it together? Yeah.
Some birds nest on the ground. Maybe the bird just, found a clump of rocks and laid the eggs on those. That's part of it. How was it made? Every bird is different. So
those are great questions. So I can see how we're going so much farther into observing nature for ourselves than just the notice.
Yes.
So we've noticed, we have thought, what does this remind us of? We think about it, and now we have asked these questions.
Yes.
And then the last one was record?
Reflect. Reflect on what you have observed. And that's when you do record your observations.
That's part
Whether
of it.
you write them down, or you draw them, or you do both, or you just state out loud what you observed.
Put it in your own words.
Put it in your own words. Because that's how you're going to remember it, when you do something with it. And so you reflect on it. What did I learn with my observations today?
Those are great steps.
Yes.
Those are great steps. Did you come up with those yourself?
I did not. I mean, I do those naturally on my own, but I saw those in a book, And I kind of simplified what was in the book a little bit. But I got those ideas from John Muir
This one
Laws,
right here.
from this book.
The Laws Guide to Nature Drawing and Journaling by
Yes.
John Muir Laws.
Now, the first part of the book covers what we just went through and more. And then the last part of the book is how to draw different objects in nature.
Oh, okay.
So if you need drawing instruction or you like that sort of a thing, that part of the book can be useful also.
We'll leave a link to this for everybody to find. I know he also has some great free downloads on his website with good
Yes.
tips too. But this is gold. These 4 steps.
Yes.
I can
And
see how
if you can remember those 4 steps,
Yeah.
notice, think about it, ask
Ask
questions
questions.
about it, and reflect on what you learned.
yes.
4 simple steps.
But it makes things go so much deeper than just observe.
Yes.
It gives you a little framework to work through. I love that. I love that. All right, so do we want to try one in real time here?
Yes.
All right. We have
So,
this little nature object from my front yard. And let's see if we can walk through the 4
right.
steps.
so the first step is notice
Notice.
what you can about it. What do you notice about the leaves?
I know, well, number 1, I noticed that this is a twig off of a tree.
Good. That's
Okay?
a good place
We need to start there, especially for people who are listening and not watching to this podcast. That would help them know that this is not a little bunny I'm holding. All right. The leaves, some of them are baby tiny leaves. I just turned it over because you said look from different perspectives. And there's some little baby tiny leaves and that aren't quite unfurled yet. And there's some medium-sized leaves and there's some large ones. They are, I'm feeling them now. They feel a bit waxy. Very
That's good.
little bit of serration around the edges. The veins on the leaves look like they're alternating from that middle point, that middle line.
The leaves are lighter on the underside than on the top
Oh,
side.
yes, they are, lighter green.
What
And-
about, yeah,
Well, I was going to say the leaves coming off the twig are also alternating.
yes. Yes, they are. Those
They
are
aren't
good.
They aren't coming off together the same
Good
point.
observations.
And then at the bottom, oh, thank you. And then at the bottom, closest to where it came off the trunk or the branch, we still have these 2 clusters of blossoms. And those have like little stars underneath they're the white blossoms with the purplish, I'm going to get real technical here, stringy things in the middle.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. And holding up those delicate white petals, there's like a green star underneath that's holding them up. But they're on the ends of these long dangly stems, little clusters, lots of clusters. Oops, somebody just fell off. Hang on there, guys. Lots of clusters coming off of this one bit. I'm using all these wonderful technical terms,
That's
and I'm
okay.
feeling a bit foolish because I don't know them, you
That's
know?
okay that you don't know them because this is about observing, not learning terminology.
Thank you. That makes sense.
So you are doing well.
I also observed that this leaf has been chewed on by an insect.
Yes, somebody was having a meal. There's several
Breakfast.
several on here that
Oh, look at that one. Yeah. So whatever this is, this type of leaf, there is some kind of insect that really likes it. And this one really liked this partially grown leaf. It must have been very tender,
Yes.
so it went for that. All right.
All
So
right.
we've observed.
So
That's the notice
We
part.
noticed.
And we used several senses. Oh, it does have a beautiful scent.
smell the blossoms.
The blossoms are lovely. Yes. I can't describe them. How do you describe a scent? You can only compare it to something else. Anyway, yes, so I looked, I felt it, I smelled it. I'm not going to taste it. and listening to it, that's not going to glean me too much there, but I used as many senses as I could. I noticed. Okay,
Good.
next.
Think about what it looks like. Do the leaves remind you of some other object or some other tree that you have observed? Or the blossoms? Or the color of the bark? Anything about it? Does it remind you of something else?
The leaves kind of remind me of the little fig tree that I have in my house. I had one for many years, and they're kind of that same shape. That
Yeah, fruit trees have
teardrop
similar
shape.
shaped leaves.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it kind of reminds me of that. And then the blossoms are white with the little pink in the middle, but the clusters remind me of, I want to say bleeding heart, but that's not the right type of flower. There's another flower that has the little white dangly downs, to use the correct terminology.
The correct terminology,
yes.
of course.
So there you go.
It also, you can see, you said this is a type of cherry tree.
Yes, it's
right?
a
From your
Japanese
yard,
cherry
you know
tree.
that.
Yeah.
And looking at the stems and how the flowers are formed, you can almost see how the fruit will hang on there. And if you've seen cherries on the stems,
that looks just like that.
Yeah.
Where that little white petal is, that's where the cherry would be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes, of course. You're so clever.
how about if we move on to asking the questions?
Okay, let's do.
Okay. Well, who?
Who planted this? I do not know.
Somebody in the past.
That's right.
That's all we can tell about that, and that's okay if you can't answer all the questions. That's not the goal.
Okay.
The goal is to learn what we can, not check off boxes.
Who, what?
What?
It is a Japanese cherry tree.
Yes, and you know that because you've identified it before.
Because we've lived here for 22 years, and eventually I figured out I should get to know what kind of tree this is.
Right.
Yes.
But if you didn't know what it was, you could use a field guide or a tree key to look it up. If you couldn't find it in that, it's an ornamental tree in your neighborhood, you might go to a garden center or a plant nursery and see if you can find that tree.
And I could take a picture
being
of this
sold.
and show it to the experts there and see
Yes.
if they could help me with it.
Or your county
Absolutely.
extension office sometimes is a good source.
Good.
Too, because they're supposed to know everything about your area.
Okay. That's who, what, where.
Where?
Front yard, but there's two trees right next to each other, and they're two different types. So I have to know which one it is that is the cherry tree. And I know where it came from, yes.
And it grows in your neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. I
In
see
Georgia.
The blooms all over the place, yes, here in
So-
Georgia. You probably, I don't know if you have these up in Illinois.
I don't know if we have that kind of cherry. We do have cherries.
Yes, but
I
maybe not this
don't know
particular
if we
one.
have that particular one.
Okay, that's the where. Who, what, where. When?
When? Now that could be when was it planted? That could be when did the blossoms first appear? We can tell from looking at this that the leaves came out before it blossomed because the leaves are full
Yes,
and the blossoms are still blooming.
yes, yes.
If it bloomed before the leaves came out, you would see the flowers, but not the leaves, or just little leaves starting to emerge. So those are important questions
Nice.
to ask too.
That's the when.
That's the when. How? You could see how does it grow. You've already mentioned that the leaves are alternating, and even the veins on the leaves, you've made observations on that. Any of those could fall under how.
Okay.
Why? Why did it grow here? Why does it leaf out before it flowers? We might not know the answers to those questions, but we can still ask them and see if we can figure it out. Even make some guesses. Maybe in this case, the leaves come out first because what's needed to pollinate the flowers needs the leaves.
Ah.
I don't know if that's true, but that would be an observation that you could make. And you could jot that down in your nature journal. And as you continue observing in those long time nature observations, see if you were right or not.
Or even just jot down your question.
Yes.
And see if you can find the answer later on.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
So we went through the questions. We're to our final step. Reflect on your observations. What did you find out about this twig?
And then I would write those down in my nature notebook, or I would draw a picture of this.
You can draw, you can write your observations, or you can draw it and talk about it with somebody, or just even speak it out loud, because that verbalizing it, whether it's to somebody else or just to yourself, helps you to remember also.
Great, great. Very helpful. So, to recap, we notice what we can using as many of the senses as possible. We think about what it reminds us of, try to form a connection with something else already in our heads. We ask the questions, who, what, where, when, why, and how, or as many as are applicable.
Yes.
And even if we can't answer those questions, we can jot down what the question is and keep looking for an answer.
Yes.
Or we can jot down what we think the answer might be and confirm or clarify it later. And that jotting down leads to the fourth step, which is to reflect and record our observations.
Yes.
Now that we have so many observations, if you had just said, what do you notice about that? I would have stopped there. But when we asked those questions, it got so much richer and deeper. And it's not that hard to remember those.
No. Even you did it.
Yeah, which is saying something. That's great. Thank you so much. That's great. Thanks. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe through iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, or your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode. We'll leave links in the show notes to the book that we mentioned, to the other episodes we mentioned. We hope that you'll join us next time. Thanks for joining us today.